Welcome back, 8th grade. We're going to go ahead and jump back into paragraph 14 where we left off. But first, I want us to take a look at this question off to the side so that when we're reading through paragraph 14, we know what we're looking for. So the question asks, why did the Greensboro group decide that their protest must be nonviolent? Okay, so just be thinking about that as we're going through paragraph 14. Okay. Because we were freshmen, we recognized that we needed help, and we went to the various leadership positions, students who had leadership positions on campus, and asked for their help in doing this. We told those people and those other kids it was important that you be nonviolent, that if we weren't nonviolent, we'd probably not accomplish what we wanted to accomplish, and that was to bring attention to segregation, its negative impact on Black people, so those students agreed to do that. And so by the fourth day, the Greensboro group was 125. Other areas and other parts of the country saw who had been thinking about doing sit-ins for some time. Durham, places in Maryland, South Carolina, throughout the South, all these spontaneous student movements, nonviolent student movements, started to happen and started to influence people. And before you knew it, there were pickets in all the Woolworth stores nationally. There were pickets in Philadelphia. There were pickets in Harlem on 125th Street. It was a magnificent thing to be a part of. I don't know if you've ever been able to say, this is something I really believe in. If they're going to put us in jail, that's okay, because this is something we're going to jail for. If they're going to hit us and hurt us, there couldn't be anything more nobler than to stand up for human rights and civil rights at that time. We chose to be nonviolent, and in hindsight, it worked. Okay, so let's look at this question. I got my pretty boys on today, child. Okay, so let's look at this paragraph 14. Why did the Greensboro group decide that their protest must be nonviolent? Okay, so go ahead and pause the video now, or you can wait a couple seconds for us to go ahead and move on. All right. So let's read through paragraph 16 and then we will continue. So what was the event that inspired the Woolworth counter sit-in? Were there sit-ins elsewhere? We had heard of other sit-ins when I was in high school in Wilmington. We had heard of sit-ins and protest movements and talked about doing something. We probably picked it up from someplace in Oklahoma City. There were sit-ins several years ago, so sit-ins used as a means of protest didn't start with the Greensboro Four. But the fact that this massive student movement resulted from the Greensboro sit-ins is a reality. There was no particular event or singular event. It was years and years of injustice. Segregation was an evil. Years and years of lynchings and murders and beatings. All these things had a cumulative effect. One of the things that impressed me was the fact that the Little Rock Nine was able to influence their history by being strong, being brave, being what I would call children of courage, and the fact that they could endure and prevail. Another event that influenced me was the horror that happened to Emmett Till left a deep scar on me. And the fact that people in our country, in America, let that happen. So there's no particular event, but a series of cumulative events. Okay, so let's look at these questions right here for paragraph 16. So find evidence, because of course if you ain't got evidence from you ain't got nothing, right? So we need to whoop-de-whoop, underline, just like that. Okay, underline 4, not 3, not 5, not 7. 4 events or people that inspired the Greensboro Four to start their own sit-ins, okay? After you finish with that, I want you to write, okay, in your own words, write one sentence. Look, 1, not 2, not 5, not 2, 1, okay? Write one sentence explaining what inspired the Greensboro Four, okay? Go back this up a little bit. footnotes. Okay, so first word we have is movement. It's a noun. Okay, it's a large group of people working together to change society, okay, or reach other common goals. We've got hindsight. It's a noun, and it means understanding of a situation that comes only after the situation has happened. Okay, so it's like maybe you're in the wrong place, wrong time, and then afterwards you're like, man, if I wasn't there, that probably wouldn't have happened. If I would have been minding my own business, that probably would have happened. Wouldn't have happened, right? So it's hindsight after something has happened. All right. Number 13. Let's see what it's referring to. Durham. It is a city. City in North Carolina. Okay. 14, a historically black neighborhood in New York City. I believe that was Harlem. Okay. And then 15, lynching. Okay, it's a noun, and it's the mob killing of a person, especially by hanging. White Americans use lynching to terrorize and keep control over black Americans. Between 1877 and 1950, more than 4,000 black Americans were lynched by white mobs. Okay, very gruesome. Cumulative. Okay, it's an adjective. It means building up slowly over time. 17, the Little Rock Nine. Okay, were the 9 African American teenagers who were the first black students. Who were the first black students at the formerly all-white Little Rock Central High School, Arkansas, 1957. Yo, stop. No. Okay? And then endure, it's a verb, and it means to suffer through something difficult or painful, especially something that lasts a long time. Okay? And then 19, that was about Emmett Till, and he was a 14-year-old African-American boy who was lynched in Mississippi in 1955 after whistling at a white woman, and it turns out that woman came back and said that she had actually made it straight. So pretty sad. All right, let's go ahead and move on. All right, so what was your proudest moment, greatest accomplishment as it relates to your activism, and how would you like to be remembered? There are several things that I would call one of my proudest moments. One would be the fact that I was associated with some of the finest people to walk on this earth. People of courage, people of principle, people who didn't ask what's in this for me, but who gave of time, of money, physical presence. People who took abuse. Black people, white people, red people, brown people, people from every segment of life, poor people, people of wealth, all found a way to be a part of this. It became a movement. What I'm proud of is the fact that I was, early on, part of this group, and it formed the basis of my life. The fact that we could use nonviolence, the fact that I could meet a James Farmer, Floyd McKissick, the fact that we could meet a Dr. King and all those things was so important to me, being a part of my life and my work. Okay? So let's go ahead and look at this real quick. How was McNeil affected by associating with other civil rights activists? Okay, so how was he affected by associating with other civil rights activists? Right? Here is the paragraph 17 through 18 there, so you want to get your answers down. Okay. All right, so how did you cope with the fear? The fear aspect is one, and I don't like to use the term fear. When I think of fear, I think of something General George Patron said. He said, fear is something that all human beings have. The fact that we have it is not important. What is important is how we handle fear. And I think that whatever fear we have, we handled very, very well. It was certain that we weren't going to be attacked. It was very unusual for 4 black males to take a stand of defiance. We grew up in a legacy where lynchings took place normally. To a large degree, we handled it so well because of something intangible called faith. Faith in doing something we knew was right and standing up for it. Faith in our creators that good was going to prevail over evil. That faith sustained us and became an important part of all our demonstrations later on. You stand there and take a slug in the face, or you're hit with a pipe like the Freedom Riders. You need a strong faith to be able to handle that. Let me see if we got a question. Yes, we got a question. Okay. So according to McNeil, what is the relationship between fear and faith? Okay, what is the relationship between fear and faith? So here is the text again, if you'd like to pause it, answer your questions. All right. So let's want to move on to this next paragraph. So how do you think history will regard the activism you were a part of? I think history will say that this is some of our prouder moments as being human beings. What's taking place back in those periods of time became not just local in nature, they became national and they became international. I received letters from people in Brazil when this was happening. We see the influence of nonviolence and rightness going on for years afterwards. We see it in Poland when Lech Walesa had a solidarity movement. People were singing, "We shall overcome." We saw it in China when the students were protesting against the tanks rolling down the Tiananmen Square. Ooh. So we see this as being an important part of history. We always need to remember the good that we've done. We make a lot of mistakes in life, yet we don't ever need to give up. Goodness will prevail in the end, and we just need to keep doing the right. Principled things to always have the moral high ground. Ooh. Sorry, y'all. Okay, so let's look at these paragraph 22 questions here. So, of course, if you don't have evidence, you don't have nothing for me. So, we're going to underline 3 details. Not 5, not 4, not 2, 3. Okay? That show the impact of the Greensboro Force actions. Okay? Then, you're going to, of course, write your answer here in this turn and talk. And the question asks, what is McNeil's attitude toward making mistakes? How does he feel about making mistakes, right? Okay, here is the text. You can pause, write down your answers. We are also going to take a little bit of time just to breathe. Make sure everybody is good. Now, there is a lot going on in the world today, but I just want to make sure we breathe. We are breathing, chilling, not stressing, trying not to stress, right? Okay, we're going to go ahead and move on. A little brain break. Okay. So, talk about meeting people like the farmer. Meeting people in the movement was so important to me because it was part of my growth. SNCC, Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, is a product of the sit-ins, a direct product of the sit-ins. It involves students and others from around the country who felt the need to make this thing that was evolving to a movement coherent, focus on attentions and spread our resources and manage our resources effectively. People I respect, the John Lewises, somebody called us the children of courage, and I think of them in that respect. We stood up against an evil. We stood for principle. We stood for justice. We stood for the dignity of man. Okay? So let's look at this question for paragraph 24. It says, why were McNeil and his associates called children of courage? Okay? Why were McNeil and his associates called children of courage? All right? Here is paragraph 24 here, in case you need to refer back. You can feel free to pause this video at this time if you like. Okay, let's go move down to 25. retired now. My last job was with the FAA. I retired in the senior executive service. I was manager of the Eastern region of flight standards. That job was global in nature. It involved not just the eastern part of the United States, from Washington up to New York State, but also it involved Europe, Africa, and the Middle East, providing regulatory as well as other aspects of aviation. Excuse me. So it was an important position. I was one of a few diversity candidates, diversity managers in the FAA. I think I was a key part in developing other types of diversity programs in the agency. I was at the FAA from '87 till 2002. I served on active duty in the Air Force as a navigator for 6 years, 1963 to 1969. After that period of time of active duty, I became a part of the Air Force Reserve, a citizen soldier. At McGuire AFB for most of it, squadron commander, etc., becoming a general officer and retiring with 2 stars as Major General. Okay, we're going to pause right there because I know we got a question waiting for us. So, how did McNeil continue to fight for equality in his later life? Okay, we're going to be looking at paragraphs 25 through 27 for that. So let's go ahead and, you can go ahead and pause the video if you like. But remember, the question is, how did McNeil continue to fight, right? How did he continue to fight for equality later in his life? Okay, here's 25 through 27. Okay, let's go ahead and move on. In 2008, how do you feel about race relations, discrimination? Are you hopeful still amid so many problems? I'm optimistic about race relations. It often seems as if we take 3 steps forward and 2 back. Retaining and maintaining some of the gains, I would say, of civil rights is often difficult. I say we stay the moral high ground. It's going to evolve. It's so important to still be here and that we do the right thing. When you look at the world on a global basis, if America doesn't exercise this kind of relationship in human relations, then who in our world will? The conflicts, the religious conflicts, all the conflicts that we have, I think it's important for each of us to define our moral high ground and come forward and stand for the principles that we personally believe in. But it's important that we as a country, as a nation, stand up and provide the leadership. Okay, so let's get into these questions. Paragraph 29. So how do you stand up for what's right? Okay, so your own more personal opinion. So how do you stand up for what's right? You as a person. Okay. I think that's it for the minute. So let's go over these footnotes real quick. I think I did not go over the footnotes for the page before. I'm so sorry, y'all. Okay, so let's go over these footnotes from the previous page. My apologies. So Floyd McKissick, he's footnote number 20. He was a lawyer, activist, leader of CORE, and the first black student at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill Law School. Okay, it's pretty dull. Okay. General George S. Patton led U.S. Army forces in Europe in World War II. Defiance is a noun, okay, it's bold, open disobedience. Solidarity was a Polish social reform movement in the 1980s that used nonviolent protests to demand free elections and laws protecting workers. Number 24, let's see what that's referring to. We Shall Overcome. Okay. An African-American spiritual frequently sung by American civil rights activists in the 1950s and 1960s. And then number 25, this square in China, Tiananmen Square. In 1989, more than 1 million people protested in Tiananmen Square in Beijing, China, to demand free elections, freedom of the press, and other legal reforms. Okay, and then number 26, moral high ground. To take the moral high ground means to keep a standard of good behavior, to be honest and upright no matter what others may do. Okay, so let's go ahead and scroll down to the last page. Sorry I missed that before, y'all. So number 27, so the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee was a major civil rights movement organization formed and led by college students, which was awesome. Number 28, coherent. United, well thought out and whole. John Lewis was a student activist and chairman of the SNCC. Has served as U.S. representative for the state of Georgia for more than 30 years, so that's pretty awesome. Dignity, it's a noun. The quality of being worthy of respect, a sense of one's own value. And then the word evolve, it's a verb, okay, to change and develop slowly over time. Alrighty, 8th grade, it's been fun. It's been real, and it's been real and fun. Please, as always, let us know if we can help with anything at all. You know, my DMs are open, my email is open, etc., etc. My Teams is open, so please let us know if we can assist you in any way. Y'all take care. Take it easy. This is not hard. Please hit us up if you need help. Please, please, please. Okay. Love y'all. Deuces. Bye.